Let's get into our best bets. First up, we get doing some best bets. We're doing some value plays, and then we're gonna tell the listener, what shouldn't you bet in game week 1? What team looks good on paper but maybe isn't a good idea to bet? So, Chris, let's start off with you here.
Yeah, so this, as you mentioned, we're starting out with a lock. I'm going to call this my lock of the week. Kind of looking around initially at all the matches here, all 10 matches for game week 1. There's some interesting money line stuff here. Typically, just given how things break down over the season, tend to look at teams that are going to be playing at home, that are favorites, and seeing if we can get any value on the money line there. Two teams that have been kind of interesting in the fact that Fulham is a team who hasn't done anything, it seems like, this offseason in terms of acquiring players or selling players. Just kind of same old. We haven't seen literally any movement on their roster, which is a bit kind of concerning, I would say, as you head into another season. Perhaps they're, destined for another mid-table finish, which has been par for the course, but it is concerning overall. And then you've got a team like Brighton who has, they've sold some of their more quality players. Obviously, João Pedro going to Chelsea is a big move. They've got, a few other players that have left, and, as they do, they continue to invest in, young, cheap players who they're eventually going to move on for like double, triple the price. But Brighton is hosting Fulham this weekend in game week 1. And my lock of the week is Brighton moneyline -105. They're at home. I still think the team is really strong. Second season under Fabian Hurtzler. I just like where they're heading, and it's tough to bet against, the general organization of what they have. And just given what I said about how Fulham is not reinvested at all, I like Brighton to come away with a win here. And my lock of the week is Brighton -105.
Yeah, Fulham's big signing may be Josh King, 18-year-old, might be starting on day 1 for them, which, that's sometimes it's a good thing having an 18-year-old start. Sometimes it's, just maybe you're out of guys. Maybe Emil Smith-Rowe's not healthy and you're out of guys to start in a certain role kind of thing. But we'll see how that plays out. Maybe Fulham will add someone. Maybe they won't. They're kind of short left backs right now, so I agree. I like your pick. I like the Brighton money line. My favorite bet for game week 1, it's Friday's match. We're talking Thursday here. I'm going to Friday. I think this is maybe a little bit of a stupid bet here because I'm doing a single game parlay here. It is kind of stupid to do that in your lock of the week, but I like this. I like this one a lot. So we got Liverpool at home against Bournemouth. I'm going over 3.5 goals and both teams to score, and we're getting +136 odds there. I think you could probably, if you like Liverpool, you could throw in Liverpool money line if you want. But if you look at these two teams, we know that Gravenberch is suspended. McAllister is not 100%. Looks like Szoboszlai is going to start in one of those deeper roles. Curtis Jones started there in their last game against Crystal Palace in that deeper role instead of Gravenberch/McAllister. We saw the mistakes that defense was making. Still unsure of the Frimpong and Kirkez in terms of their defensive abilities. And then you look at Bournemouth. Ryan Christie's not healthy. Lewis Cook's not healthy. They're two defensive midfielders. Their back line is completely new almost. One guy returning is like a 30-plus-year-old Adam Smith at right back. Injuries at defensive midfield. Almost a completely new back line. I think Liverpool is going to score goals, but I also think Bournemouth are going to score goals. I think you can look at over 3.5 by itself. You can look at over 4.5, but I also think both teams are going to score here. So over 3.5 and both teams to score. That is, I got Thursday morning, I got +136 odds. Chris, you're the Liverpool guy. Are you backing that bet?
Yeah, I think so. Watching the Community Shield, obviously, whether you consider that serious or not, but Crystal Palace put up 2 goals and 2 like decent, the one was the PK and then Sarr scored a pretty good one. But outside of that, they were dangerous on the counterattack. I do think that Liverpool gives up quite a bit in terms of height. Not that Bournemouth are like, set piece extraordinaires, but Frimpong's like very short. I guess I didn't realize how short he was. And then Kirkez is, which seems like a stray coming for me, but Kirkez is also like not the most physically imposing. So, and obviously, both on both sides here, you count the right back, left back for Liverpool, who are going to be brand new to starting for them. And then Bournemouth, who sold 3 of their starting back line. So you're looking at a lot of change for both back lines. And then obviously you kind of couple that in with Liverpool's firepower up front. And, we could see a 3-1 game, 3-2 game, and just see generally a lot of goals here. So I guess I'm kind of with it. And then, Liverpool playing at Anfield, they should benefit from that. Obviously, it might be kind of an emotional experience with like the first league game back after winning the title. Obviously, Jota, passing away over the summer. So I'm interested to see how emotionally charged it is too. But yeah, I'm for the over 3.5 goals. I think I like the lock of the week here from you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways we can go. 2-2, 3-2, 3-1, 4-2, 4-1. I think we can get a little wild here if we really want to. Let's get in some value. Some not as close to even odds here. What's your best value play for game week 1?
Yeah, so value definitely a little bit different than the lock of the week here. I'm looking for something that's a little bit better odds. Preferably over plus 200 is what I consider a value play. I think when you're around the plus 100 or even, minus 125 range, that's not really a value play. So just kind of setting out the guardrails of like looking at a over plus 200 bet for a value play. And then in future weeks, if we see something else, maybe we can go even higher with that. But I found this one interesting. Immediately, thinking about Pep's Man City, who had, probably the worst season that they've had as a Man City side under Pep last season. I think we see a big bounce back. They did some really nice work early on in the transfer market, and I expect Haaland had a bit of wasn't quite as good as his first season. It's hard to kind of match up with that, but I do expect him to be a lot better this season. They refreshed in the midfield for sure. And then obviously bought some guys in the winter that I feel like will have had a better opportunity to kind of transition into the team. So I like one bet I'm looking at, and they're playing Wolves, by the way. So it's City at home versus Wolves. So I initially looked at can I get any? I'm sorry, is it Wolves?
Wolves are home.
City
yeah.
visiting Wolves. Yep. And so I initially looked at can I get any value on a City spread? Can I get any value on a Haaland plus City kind of money line type of bet? But City is minus 185, so obviously no value there. The one thing I looked at next was what is the spread for City to win by a couple goals? City is minus 1.5, plus 145. So I like that, but that doesn't quite meet my guidelines as a plus 200 bet. One thing that I found fun, if City are going to win by 2, I do expect Erling Haaland to find the back of the net. So I have found this bet. It's Haaland to outscore opposition. So he himself needs to score more goals than Wolves. It's plus 215. So say Haaland scores a goal and they shut out Wolves, which is, given they lost Cunha this summer. I don't think that they necessarily got any better. I think City have gotten better. So I think if Haaland can find the back of the net, I think he will end up with more goals than Wolves will for the match. So that's Haaland to score more goals than the opposition, plus 215. I like this bet. If he finds the back of the net twice, even better. I don't expect Wolves to fill it up more than at least one goal. So kind of an interesting bet, and I like this as my value play for the week.
Yeah, it's an intriguing one. Minus 125 to score, plus 215 to score more than Wolves. Wolves have an implied goal total just below 1, so I think the plus 215 it's a bet I don't think either of us has looked at before, but one that I think it makes sense in a situation like this. In terms of mine, I did mention I was looking at that Brighton match. I did write down Brighton over 2.5 goals plus 240. I kind of say the same things that Chris said about Brighton, but I'm going somewhere else here. A little different spot. I'm going to this Nottingham Forest match, home against Brentford. I think there's a lot of questions for both these sides. Brentford, of course, what's going on with them, and then Nottingham Forest, they got Europa League to deal with now. I'm going Nottingham Forest just really struggling to score in preseason. They struggled to score at the end of last season. And Brentford, what are we going to get from them? There's not going to be a Wissa. There's not going to be a Mbumo. What are we going to get from this Brentford attack? So I'm going pretty heavy here. I like the under 2.5 goals, which is even odds. But I'm going under 1.5 goals for this Nottingham Forest match against Brentford, plus 255 odds. Under 1.5 goals. I don't usually make bets like this, but wow. I think we got two iffy attacks here. I kind of like the defenses for both teams as well. Maybe some more questions for Brentford in the midfield than Nottingham Forest, but Under 1.5 goals. I think it's in play. We get 1-0. Could even get 0-0. Don't want the 1-1 to happen, but under 1.5 goals plus 255 odds.
Yeah, super interesting here. You mentioned kind of all of the departures for both teams. I mean, Alonga to Newcastle for Forest, and then Brentford pretty much losing their full front line. Yeah, you're starting. I'm just looking at like the projected starting lineups here for both teams, and I mean, Forest is pretty close to the same, with the exception of Alonga. But then like Brentford, you've got Thiago starting up front, Damsgaard, who has been consistent, but then Jordan Henderson in the middle, Yarmouk, and then Fabio Carvalho on the right, who he didn't really start and didn't really integrate himself completely in a great way last season. And so I'm interested in this bet. I'm a little weary just because that's not very many goals, but I guess the way that so I mean, thinking about kind of, I guess, how the game might unfold, Forest last season, where they were so good, they would like concede possession and then just hit you on the counter so well. And Chris Wood obviously was great. He outperformed XG expectations, and so I think that your best bet here is like Brentford, maybe, new manager, maybe kind of continuing to play in their like possession based style, and Forest sitting back and just like not being able to hit them back on the counter.